Discover the heartwarming moment when a kind restaurant owner feeds a homeless man. His life is forever changed. It was a biting winter evening on the corner of Main Street and Oak Avenue. Flurries of snow danced in the air, creating a shimmering blanket over the city, but inside Jack's diner, warmth and familiarity flowed like the scent of fresh coffee and his famous meatloaf. The diner, adorned with vintage photographs and colorful knickknacks, was a world away from the cold, a space filled with laughter and hearty conversations. It wasn't just a diner. It was home. As the door creaked open, a gust of icy wind followed Mike inside. He stepped in hesitantly, eyes scanning the room filled with patrons enjoying their well-deserved respite. Every smile turned to a whisper, every fork paused on its journey to a mouth. Jack caught Mike's eye, a moment frozen in time. The weight of desperation hung in the air, reminding Jack of the tales his late grandfather shared about humanity, sacrifice, and kindness. With a tight chest and unyielding resolve, Jack approached Mike, his heart racing. "Hey there, buddy," he said, forcing a warm smile through the tension. He placed a steaming plate of meatloaf and mashed potatoes in front of Mike. "This is on the house. You look like you could use a good meal." Surrounding diners shifted uncomfortably, their eyebrows raising in unison. A deafening silence followed Jack's bold gesture. Mike's eyes sparkled with doubt. He slowly forked the food into his mouth, and for a moment, the chatter faded into the background. Memories rushed to him, family gatherings filled with laughter, dreams of a better life that had slowly faded into the stark realities of the street. Jack saw not just a homeless man, but a life filled with heartbreak, igniting a passion within him to help. Yet, murmurs erupted amongst the diners as they cast judgment. "Does he really deserve a meal?" one whispered. Jack felt the heat rise within him, ready to defend Mike. "Wait just a moment," he exclaimed, his voice shaking but firm. "We all face struggles at different points in our lives. We can either choose to shut our eyes or open our hearts." A few patrons exchanged glances, still uneasy, but a flicker of curiosity ignited in some eyes as Mike's guard began to drop. His tense shoulders eased, revealing glimpses of the man he once was. Tears welled in Jack's eyes. Their shared humanity was undeniable. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Just as the atmosphere shifted softly, an elderly woman spoke up. "He deserves a chance, just like any of us. We never know their story." A collective gasp rippled through the room. The divide, once a mountain, now seemed like a hill. Mike's eyes glistened, a spark of hope igniting within. Yet, tension still lingered. Judgments hung heavy, and the moment crackled with the potential for connection or conflict. Jack looked from Mike to the diners, his heart pounding. Could a single act of kindness really bridge the gap in their hearts? As the night unfolded, the diner became not just a place for food, but a battleground for compassion versus prejudice. Jack stood resolutely beside Mike, a champion for the dignity every person deserved. Yet, the question echoed in the air: would their hearts soften or harden in the face of this moment? The air thickened with anticipation. Jack and Mike poised on the brink of transformation, the story only just beginning. The energy in Jack's diner shifted like the incessant snow outside. Patrons quietly shifted in their seats, uncertain of what to say or do. Their eyes darted between Jack, standing firm with compassion radiating from his stance, and Mike, whose fork hovered midair, as if the food had become a bridge to a forgotten life. Jack shifted his gaze back to Mike. "Look, I know it's tough out there. We all face moments when life feels unbearable. His voice was steady, matching the weight of his words. But the world has a way of surprising us, Mike. You deserve this meal and more. Slowly, Mike lowered his fork and looked around. Flashes of discomfort met him, the skeptical glances, the whispers, and yet, amidst the hesitance, a few diners' eyes silently encouraged him to break free from the chains of doubt. "Thank you," he whispered, barely above a breath, but the gratitude echoed loudly in the space soaring to the ceiling. As he ate, savoring each bite, silence transformed into a cautious acceptance. The diner felt softer. The hardness of judgment began to melt away, just like the snow on the window. Jack moved around, checking in with other tables, yet his heart remained tethered to Mike. The elderly woman who spoke up earlier caught Jack's attention once more. Her kind eyes beamed as she extended a calloused hand toward Mike. "What a kind heart you have," she said, her voice tremulous yet warm. "We all have stories, and perhaps it's time we start sharing them." Her words were not just directed at Mike. They affected everyone present. The atmosphere was charged, like static before a storm. Jack seized this moment. "Anyone here willing to join us? Let us break bread and share a story or two." A brave smile danced on his lips, challenging the diners to lean into the humanity wrapped around the table. Nervously, a young man, after watching Mike for a moment, finally raised his hand. "I lost my job last month," he began. "I didn't think I'd ever experience true fear, but here I am." He gestured to Mike, speaking louder, as if Mike were a mirror reflecting his own fears back at him. "That could be me out there," he continued, voice cracking. Jack felt the air shudder with realization. A few more voices joined and stories poured forth, like a river: lost jobs, broken relationships, even crippling health issues. Each account punctuated the shared experience of vulnerability. Mike's trembling hand now clutched the fork with a newfound strength. As he listened, he felt lighter. The walls of isolation began to crumble. "I was once a teacher," he admitted, surprising even himself. "I used to inspire kids, and I lost everything: my family, my way." The room exhaled a soft collective sigh, as if everyone held their breath waiting for his next words. Suddenly, Jack felt her spirit surround them all, binding the diner in a moment that felt like a sacred reality. "Tonight," Jack spoke, the air buzzing with emotion, "we've started something far bigger than a simple meal." Yet beneath this mingling of souls, a shadow still lingered. Not all eyes shone with understanding. Murmurs persisted, doubts simmered, and not everyone was ready to accept change just yet. As he picked up the last morsel from his plate, Mike's heart raced. Could he speak his truth? Could this moment bring him the comfort he so desperately craved? The decision loomed over him, an uncharted path just waiting to be walked. Drawing a deep breath, he readied himself to share what was buried deep inside. The room leaned in, anticipation crackling in the air. What would he reveal? Would this act of vulnerability open the door further, or unleash hesitation once again? Turned upside down, Mike felt a rush of uncertainty wash over him. He struggled to gather the thoughts swirling in his mind. The stories shared by others only intensified the weight of his own. What did he have to offer? What could he say that would resonate with these strangers, that could bridge the gap from pain to hope? The diners held their breath, eyes on him, some curious, others skeptical, but all connected in this shared moment. Jack took a small step closer, nodding in encouragement. A flicker of determination ignited inside Mike. "I was a good teacher," he began, his voice trembling but resolute. "I helped kids find their voices. I believed in them when their own families didn't." He paused. Faces softened, nods of understanding rippled through the crowd. "I got lost somewhere along the way. When my wife left me, I thought I'd lost everything. It's easy to let the darkness take over." Mike cleared his throat, the taste of his own vulnerability frightening yet liberating. I hadn't realized how much I needed to share all of this until tonight. There's a part of me that's been waiting to feel like I belong somewhere again. He saw Jack's unwavering gaze, felt the warmth of the elderly woman's hand still extended. She squeezed it gently, urging him on. I still believe in stories, he confessed, his voice beginning to rise above the din of the diner. I believe they bring us together, even when we're worlds apart. More murmurs floated through the room, and it felt like the air itself thickened with hope. Tears glistened in the eyes of the young man who had first spoken. You remind me of why I wanted to be a part of education, he said softly. You remind me that we're in this together. As Mike continued, he noticed the shift in the room, the barriers crumbling. The dark pits of his despair pulled back slightly. I don't want to be defined by my failures, he said, shaking. I want to grow, to help others see the light. This is the moment, Jack chimed in, his voice cutting through the silence. This is why we're all here. It's not just about sharing food, it's about sharing our hearts. Each of you has a story. Every struggle and triumph can uplift us all. A ripple of change spread like electricity in the diner. Nearby, a woman wiped a tear away as the reality washed over everyone. They were all striving for connection, yearning to find solace in shared experience. In that moment, the diner felt less like a place to eat and more like a sanctuary. Just then, the door swung open, sending a rush of cold air into the warmth. An unexpected figure stood there, face obscured by a knit scarf. Tension coiled around the diner once again. As the figure walked in, heads turned, hearts raced. What would this newcomer add to the story unfolding within these walls? Was it a chance encounter, or something more? The diner quivered with expectation. All eyes were now fixed on the door. The figure hesitated at the entrance, surveying the room with wide eyes. The scarf partially hid their face, but the sense of vulnerability radiated from the person. With a deep breath, they stepped inside, the door creaking softly behind them. The chatter of the diner dimmed to a hum, and Mike couldn't help but notice how the air grew thick with curiosity. The person glanced at the diners, and for a brief moment, Mike saw a flicker of something raw, a glimmer of shared pain mingled with the hope of connection. Jack shifted, making room for the stranger, his warmth welcoming. As the figure moved forward, the scarf slipped down, revealing a young woman with tired eyes and a weary smile. "Is this the sharing circle?" she asked, her voice low but steady. Mike's chest tightened. Here was another soul, like him, wrapped in a story of struggle. "Yes," he replied, prompted by a sudden urge to include her in their moment. "We've been sharing our stories. You're welcome to join us." The woman's shoulders relaxed as she took a seat, her presence stirring a new energy in the room. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't know if I was brave enough to come in, but the warmth from the window looked inviting." Sensing her hesitance, Mike smiled gently. "Sometimes we just need a nudge to step into the light, right? I used to be in a dark place too." The diners all nodded, feeling the shared experience tighten their bond. The woman's gaze swept over the crowd, gathering strength from the support she felt rising around her. "I lost my job recently," she shared, her voice beginning to steady. "And I discovered how hard it is to keep hope alive when everything feels so shaky." A murmur of compassion swept through the room. The elderly woman reached out for the newcomer's hand. "We've all been there, dear. But remember, it's okay to lean on others. We'll lift you up." Seeing the warmth from everyone, tears formed in the woman's eyes. "I never expected this kind of kindness. I thought I was alone." Mike felt that familiar fire igniting again, and he spoke from a place of understanding. Kindness is everywhere, even in the toughest moments. Sometimes, we just have to look for it. The circle expanded, and as stories began to flow from one mouth to another, words weaved a tapestry of strength and community. Each experience echoed resilience, transforming despair into a bond that wrapped around them like a blanket. As the atmosphere filled with shared laughter and stories of survival, Mike noticed the door swing open yet again. Another figure entered, shivering in the evening air, and something about their posture tugged at his heart. The diner's collective gaze turned once more towards an unknown face. Who else was seeking warmth and solace on this night? Mike couldn't help but wonder what stories lingered in this newcomer's heart, and would the circle grow even deeper? Here they were, gathered in this little sanctuary, all with pieces of hope to offer. But as the door closed behind the latest arrival, uncertainty danced around the edges of Mike's heart. Would they continue to open their hearts, or would the darkness seep in once more? The new arrival stepped forward, revealing a man with disheveled hair and eyes that flickered with both fear and exhaustion. His hands were stuffed deep in the pockets of a worn jacket, as if trying to hide from the chill of both the evening air and the unwelcoming world outside. He paused, scanning the room in silence. Mike felt his heart thump louder in his chest. "Welcome," Mike said, his voice cutting through the room as gathering tension. "Come join us." The man seemed to consider it, uncertainty swirling in his gaze as he glanced at the circle of familiar faces. Jack smiled warmly, patting the seat beside him, urging him on with an inviting gesture. After a moment that felt like an eternity, the stranger shuffled forward and finally sat down. "Thanks," he finally muttered, and even that brief word carried a weight of defeat. Silence hung in the air again, but it was different this time. It was charged with anticipation, as if everyone was waiting for him to share. Mike leaned towards him, sensing the unease. "We've all shared our stories. You're safe here." The man nodded slightly, taking a deep breath. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I just got out of a tough situation. Lost everything. Been sleeping outside for a while now." That simple confession sent ripples of emotion through the table. The elderly woman squeezed her hand tighter around the young woman's, as if they were bolstering each other against the storm brewing within. "I didn't know where to go. I heard about this place from someone. They said this diner is different." The man's eyes held a hint of skepticism, but something in the warmth of the other's gaze began to thaw the icy barrier around his heart. Mike felt a rush of empathy. "We're all just stories walking around, you know? We've felt lost too, but that loss doesn't define us. It can even connect us." He paused, watching the man absorb this. "Every moment counts. You don't have to carry this all alone." Tears brimmed in the man's eyes as he looked down at the table. It was a turning point, a moment of vulnerability knit the group closer together. "I just didn't want to be seen like this." His voice cracked again, a subtle quiver betraying the strength he wished to project. Mike reached out, placing a hand on the man's shoulder. "You're seen. And you're here now. That's what matters." A soft murmur of agreement flowed through the group, and as the moment hung between them, the smell of coffee and pancakes danced through the air, wrapping around the stranger. With a small, tentative smile, he met Mike's gaze for the first time. "I appreciate that." "You're welcome to anything you want. We're all just here to help each other," Jack chimed in, his enthusiasm uplifting the man's spirit a little more. A flicker of hope ignited in the man's eyes, just for a moment. "I could really use a hot meal." Before Mike could answer, the elderly woman rose and went to the counter, her purpose crystal clear. "I'll get you something to eat," she called back. "You just sit there and relax." As the buzz of chatter resumed, Mike felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. They were creating a tapestry of compassion, one thread of story at a time. But he also sensed that their gathering was a precipice. One small spark could lead to a wider flame or a sudden extinguishing. Suddenly, the diner door opened again, a gust of cold air rushing in, and there stood a figure silhouetted against the harsh glow of the streetlight. Mike's heart raced. Who could come next? What new shadows were waiting to be revealed in this warmth? Would the circle grow yet stronger, or would the cold night bring a different story to the table? The figure stepped inside, and the door creaked, breaking the chatter. A woman, tall and slender, with long dark hair that swayed as she stepped forward. Her face held a mix of determination and despair. She brushed her hair back, revealing eyes that sparkled with unspoken stories. Mike's heart skipped. There was something about her that felt raw, like fresh wounds hidden beneath the surface. "Can I help you?" Mike asked, his voice steady, trying to invite her warmth like they had for the man at the table. She hesitated, backlit by the neon glow of the diner. "I didn't mean to intrude. I just saw the light," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Come in," Mike urged gently, motioning for her to join them. Her eyes darted to the table where the first man sat, still cautiously absorbing the kindness around him. The atmosphere was thick with emotion. It already felt as if a connection was being forged between them, despite the shadows of their pasts. "I don't want to be a bother," the woman continued, stepping further inside, her feet barely carrying her forward. "No bother at all. You're just in time. We have room for one more," Jack chimed in, flashing a smile that offered reassurance. With a deep breath, she crossed the threshold, pulling her coat tightly around her as if it could shield her from an invisible chill. She moved towards the table, drawn in by the warmth, tentative yet yearning. Taking a seat across from the man, she offered a slight nod, a silent acknowledgement of their shared struggles. "Would you like a cup of coffee?" Mike asked. That familiar, comforting aroma wafted through the air, anchoring the moment. "I'd love that," she replied, a flicker of gratitude breaking the surface. As Mike moved toward the counter, he stole a glance back at the table, two lost souls connecting over shared experiences, their eyes studying one another, slowly bridging the gap that loneliness had built. Each conversation thread weaving stronger, stitching their separate lives together as if they had known each other forever. The elderly woman returned, carrying a steaming plate piled high with pancakes, and the sweet scent wafted toward the newcomer. "Here you go, dear," she said, her warmth undeniable. "You need this." The woman's eyes filled with tears as gratitude overwhelmed her. I can't remember the last time someone offered me something like this. Sometimes, all we need is a little kindness," the elderly woman said softly, sitting beside her. "You're worth it. We all are." The man beside her looked at her with understanding. "You're not alone in this. We're here together." They shared a powerfully fragile moment, a deep understanding without words, as if the weight of the world had lifted, if only for an instant. Mike returned, placing a steaming cup in front of her. "What is your name?" "I'm Lily," she replied, her voice steadier now. "And it's nice to be seen." Just then, the diner door swung open again, making everyone turn. A gust of wind burst through, and standing there was a teenager, eyes wide with doubt and disbelief. "Is this the place?" he stammered, his voice trembling. A silence fell, heavy with expectation. Everyone was looking at him, and Mike could sense the threads of connection weaving tighter in this fragile circle. Was this another story waiting to unfold? Another life seeking a bit of light in the darkness? "Come on in," Mike called, his heart racing again. "You're in the right place." What would this newcomer bring to their gathering? Would another thread be woven into the fabric of their night? The teenager stepped inside, hesitantly scanning the room as the door swung shut behind him. He looked small, shivering slightly in the chill of the diner that contrasted with the warmth radiating from the flickering neon signs. The atmosphere shifted, the buzz of conversation dimming as everyone turned their attention toward him. "Hey there," Mike greeted, his tone encouraging. "What is your name?" "Tommy," he replied, scratching the back of his neck. His eyes flitted from face to face, finally landing on Lily, who offered him a nervous smile, as if reassuring him that he was no longer alone. "Tommy, welcome. Come on over and join us, Jack gestured to an open seat. The table had become a haven, an unexpected sanctuary where hearts were beginning to knit together like an unbreakable thread. Tommy shuffled forward, the weight of uncertainty heavy on his shoulders. He sat down, his movements swift yet cautious, as if he expected the very seat to vanish beneath him. "Would you like something to eat?" Mike asked, already moving toward the counter for another round of coffee and food. "I don't want to take anything from you," Tommy stammered. The sincerity in his voice was palpable. It was a lifetime of training to refuse help, a reflex honed by certain experiences. "Trust me, we insist," Mike replied gently. "You're here with us, and you deserve a meal just as much as anyone." Tommy's eyes darted towards the steaming plates piled high with pancakes and syrup. The scent wafted through the diner, stirring something deep within him, a longing or perhaps a memory of better days filled with warmth and laughter. "I could eat," he murmured, almost to himself, the thought of food breaking through layers of defense he had built around his heart. In a matter of moments, Mike returned with a plate for Tommy, placing it in front of him. The teenager's expression shifted from disbelief to sheer gratitude. He wasn't just receiving food. He was being treated with respect, being acknowledged as a person. "Thank you," Tommy whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He picked up the fork, eyes glistening as he dug in. The first bite sent a rush of warmth through him, and he couldn't help but smile. "This is really good. Glad you like it." Mike beamed, feeling that small flicker of hope igniting within him. Lily leaned closer, her previous fears melting away. "What is your story?" she asked, her voice gentle but curious, drawing him in with the sincerity of her inquiry. Silence hung momentarily, as Tommy's defenses flared. This wasn't an easy question, but he was surrounded by warmth now, and something about the way she looked at him made him want to share the truth. "It's just complicated," he started slowly. The weight of his life pressed down on him, but he felt safer here, shielded by the walls of kindness surrounding him. "Complicated is okay, Danny," the man across the table chimed in, his deep voice calm and steady. "We're all dealing with our own complications." Tommy's walls crumbled a little more, a crack forming in the fortress he had built. "I lost my mom last year," he stammered, his voice barely rising above a whisper. The atmosphere shifted again, now layered with shared pain and understanding. They weren't just strangers anymore. They were forming a family, built on compassion and strength. As Tommy shared fragments of his life, it felt like a soft opening, a dawning realization that he was not as alone as he had once believed. And then, unexpectedly, the door swung open once again. The sharp wind rushed in, bringing a chill that swept through the diner. A man stepped inside, his face shrouded in shadow, carrying burdens that seemed too heavy to carry alone. "Is this the right place?" he asked, scanning the room. Mike felt the familiar rush of urgency. How many lives could they touch tonight? "Always the right place," he answered, waving the newcomer in with open arms. What story would the man bring? And would this community somehow embrace him just as they had with the others? The newcomer stepped fully into the light of the diner, his features slowly becoming visible. He was scruffy, with a beard that looked unkempt and tired eyes that mirrored a world of unspoken sorrows. The energy in the room shifted once more, the collective curiosity wrapped tightly around him as he hesitated at the entrance. "Come have a seat," Jack called out, his voice infused with an inviting warmth. "You're welcome here." "Yeah, don't be shy," Lily added, her smile wide and welcoming. The atmosphere buzzed with a mixture of hope and anticipation. The man took a tentative step forward. "Name is Frank," he muttered, his words barely escaping his lips, as if they were trapped behind walls of self-doubt. "Great to meet you, Frank," Mike said, giving Tommy a quick glance, his heart swelling with pride. Both boys were experiencing simultaneous moments of vulnerability and interconnected bond forged by their struggles. Want something to eat? We've got plenty, Mike offered as he motioned towards the kitchen. Frank's dark eyes flickered down to the floor, then back up to the eager faces surrounding him. I don't want to impose, he replied, the hesitation tugging at the corners of his mouth, a hint of shame in his demeanor. Please, Tommy interjected, his own experience sparking an urge to reach out. You can't be too proud here. We've all needed help at some point. Just let us treat you to a meal. For the first time, Frank's defenses lowered a notch. He shuffled over to the booth where Tommy sat, finding his spirit lifting slightly. It didn't feel so cold in here anymore. Okay, then, he said softly. I'll take whatever you've got. A small smile creased his lips, revealing a glimpse of the man he might have been before the world overwhelmed him. Lily watched as Mike returned with a plate mounted high with comfort food gravy-soaked mashed potatoes, dense meat loaf, and a side of buttery corn. The aroma wafted over to Frank, and as he inhaled deeply, the warmth of the meal wrapped around him like an embrace. Here you go, Mike said, placing the plate in front of him. Wow, this looks amazing, Frank murmured, his voice trembling with gratitude as he dug in. Each bite tasted like a piece of home. The conversation swirled around the table, blending stories of loss and recovery, sharing laughter that echoed off the diner's walls. Frank listened closely to Tommy, who spoke about his mother and the memories that made him smile, a thread of connection woven tighter by shared experiences. Time slipped by, and the laughter grew louder, mixing with the clinking of silverware and the buzz of the neon lights. For a moment, the weight of the outside world faded, leaving only the sanctuary of camaraderie. Mike leaned back in his chair, observing the bond forming between them. Suddenly, he turned serious. So, Frank, what brings you here? Frank hesitated, glancing at each face before he replied, his voice firm yet somber. I lost my job a few months back. And then, well, I lost my home. Been living here and there since. The laughter diminished for a heartbeat, replaced by an understanding silence. This diner wasn't just a rest stop for a hot meal. It was a lifeline, a place that provided more than mere sustenance. It offered friendship, hope, and a sense of belonging. Listen, Mike said, leaning in closer. You're not alone anymore. We're all in this together. And we can help you find your footing again, wherever that may be. The warmth in Frank's eyes grew brighter, a flicker of hope igniting beneath layers of despair. Tommy nodded in agreement, their eyes meeting in silent solidarity. But before they could dive deeper into Frank's story, the door swung open once more. The wind rushed in, carrying with it the scent of rain and a new tension that crackled in the air. Another figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, shifting nervously, eyes darting from person to person in search of welcome or solace. Is it too late to join? She asked softly, her voice battling against the wind. Everyone turned to look, and Mike's heart raced. Who was this newcomer, and what brought her here seeking refuge? The woman stepped inside, a glimmer of vulnerability in her eyes. She was slight, with tangled hair pulled into a messy bun and wrapped in a coat that looked a size too big. Just as she crossed the threshold, the wind sent a chill through the diner, causing her to shiver. The air seemed to settle around her as faces turned from Frank to the newcomer, curiosity blending with compassion. Of course, it's not too late, Jack said, his welcoming demeanor shining through. Come take a seat. We're just getting started. Yeah. Sit with us, Lily exclaimed, gesturing toward the booth occupied by Frank, Mike, and Tommy. The girl hesitated but then took a step forward, her pulse quickening as she absorbed their friendly energy. I'm Emma, she said quietly, settling into the booth opposite Frank. The warmth of the diner enveloped her, and she took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing for the first time that night. Nice to meet you, Emma. Mike chimed in, eager to break the ice further. You hungry? Kind of, she admitted, glancing around as the aroma of food began to make her stomach rumble. "I don't have much, though. Just came in from the rain." Tommy slid a plate over to her, a portion of his own meatloaf dinner. "You sharing? That's generous for someone who has been struggling," he teased lightly, but his smile was genuine. Emma's eyes widened in surprise. "Really? You don't have to. Seriously, take it," Frank interjected, his stony facade beginning to crack. "We've all faced hard times. You'll need your strength to get through whatever it is you're battling." An understanding passed between Frank and Emma, a mutual recognition of the struggles they both faced. Emma nodded slowly, the tension in her body easing a bit more. "Thanks, I really appreciate it." As they began to eat, a warm chatter soon filled the booth, peppered with laughter and shared stories. Emma spoke of how she'd lost her job at a local cafe, the cascade of misfortunes that had led her to sleep in her car. Frank shared snippets of his past life as an electrician, memories that made him smile despite the heaviness of his present. The diner felt like a sanctuary, a break from the storm outside. Each bite of food and shared story added layers to their newfound connection. But amidst the laughter, Emma sneaked glances at Frank, sensing a deeper sadness behind his eyes. "What about you?" she finally asked. "How long have you been here?" Frank hesitated, the question pulling at wounds he was still learning to heal. "It's been a rough few months. I thought I'd bounce back faster, you know. I thought I was stronger." "I get it," Emma replied softly, her voice filled with an unexpected warmth. "But sometimes strength isn't about standing alone. It's about letting others in." There was a pause as they all absorbed her words, a collective breath of recognition filling the air. The diner suddenly felt small, but comforting, each heart opening a little more. Just then, the door slammed open again, letting in a gust of cold air. A shadowy figure entered, his face obscured by the hood of his jacket, and immediately the atmosphere shifted. The room went quiet, all eyes turning to him as he stepped forward, uncertainty written all over his features. Is this a safe place?" he asked, glancing around, his voice barely above a whisper. The sense of naive peace shuddered. As the group sized up the newcomer, the energy in the diner shifted again, this time teetering on the edge of tension and hope. Within moments, each heart would decide, would they take another in? What if this was the moment where everything changed once again? The silence hung in the air, heavy with anticipation. Frank glanced at Tommy, who nodded encouragingly, as if to say, "We're with you." Mike stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "Absolutely. This is a safe place. You're welcome here," he said, his voice a soothing balm against the chill of the outside world. The newcomer hesitated, his hood casting shadows across his face. "I didn't know if I could," he trailed off, vulnerability flashing in his eyes. "Come in, brother," Frank offered, his own heart swelling with the urge to connect. "You're here now. That's what matters." Slowly, the man moved closer, the warmth of the diner wrapping around him as he stepped beyond the threshold. He shed the heaviness of his fears as the door swung shut behind him. Mike gestured toward an empty seat, and the man settled into it, visibly relaxing for the first time. "Thank you," he said, almost reverently. "I'm Jace." I've been his voice faltered, supporting the weight of his unspoken story. "I've been struggling." "Join the club," Lily joked, her smile lighting up the space. "We all have our battles." "Yeah, but we're fighting together now," Tommy added, a glimmer of hope in his youthful voice. Jace glanced around the diner, his gaze landing on each face. For a moment, everyone held their breath. They were not just strangers anymore. They were a community. "I lost everything when I was laid off," Jace finally admitted, his voice trembling. "I've been living on the edge for months." "No one deserves to feel like that," Emma said softly. "You're not alone. We've all been there." "Ain't that the truth?" Frank added, feeling a bond form, a brotherhood rooted in shared hardships. As conversations flowed like the coffee-filling cups, laughter sprinkled the air. They began to swap stories, each revelation knitting them closer together, a tapestry of resilience and hope. "Remember," Jack chimed in, his deep voice ringing out over the din, "the food is just a symbol. It's about what we're creating together, a space to heal, to share." Jay's eyes glimmered with wonder. "Can I share something?" His request felt incredibly significant, as if everyone held an invisible thread waiting to be woven. "Of course," Mike encouraged, leaning closer. Taking a breath, Jace began to speak his story, fractured yet powerful, cascaded through the diner. "I used to run a small auto shop," he shared. "It was my dream. I loved fixing cars, helping people. But when the business went under, I lost everything. I lost my purpose." The chatter around the table quieted, hearts aching for his pain. "But you know what?" he continued, meeting Mike's gaze, the warmth of acceptance igniting his spirit. "This place, it feels different. I've walked through a lot of dark nights, but tonight, I feel a flicker of light." The collective sigh of relief spread through the group. "That's exactly it," Mike exclaimed. "This is our light. It's our choice to keep it shining together." "I think we're more alike than we realize," Emma chimed in, her voice light yet rooted in sincerity. "Sometimes, we carry our burdens alone, but being here lifts that weight." Each person felt the resolve swell, a semblance of strength emerging in a world that had taught them to hide. As the night progressed, they shared not just meals but laughter, stories of sorrow, and dreams of what lay ahead. There was an unspoken commitment bound by courage, an intertwining of lives that had once been frayed and alone. Just then, Jack returned with a fresh batch of dessert, slices of his famous apple pie, and set them down on the table. "Who wants dessert?" He beamed, his eyes sparkling with joy. "Me." "I do," burst forth from Tommy, the youngest in the group, feeling free for the first time. Laughter echoed around them, and as they dug in, every bite tasted sweet with possibility. The energy crackled with excitement, absorbing the intricacies of every individual story woven into the fabric of their collective experience. As night began to fade into the early morning, something shifted in the diner. It felt less like a random gathering of lost souls and more like an unwavering community, a family forged through understanding. Each person departed that night with something more than they had arrived, with a piece of hope, a heart tethered to another, and the knowledge that no one was ever truly alone. Mike stepped outside, welcoming the cool dawn air against his skin, a smile breaking across his face. Together they had transformed the moment, sprinkling light in one another's lives like snowflakes in the winter wind. What began as an evening of judgment and uncertainty had blossomed into an enduring bond. The diner was no longer just a place to eat. It had become home. If this story moved you, do not wait another second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will warm your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help bring this message to even more readers in need of light. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. You have to share your thoughts. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who desperately need to see this transformation. A little kindness can change everything. This is the moment to show your support and spread the message of connection and compassion that we all need. Don't wait not even one more second.